Hey guys, tonight we're going to journey back to the chill of medieval France, where your life as a peasant is about to begin and it's going to be rough. You're not just waking up in a charming little stone cottage with birds chirping and a warm fire crackling. No, you're waking up cold, sore, hungry, and most likely covered in fleas. Your straw-stuffed mattress smells like mold and sweat. There's no glass in your windows, just a wooden shutter that doesn't quite close and a draft snakes through every crack. Outside it's muddy, it's dark, and it smells bad. The pigs live just a few feet from your bed, separated by nothing but a thin wooden wall. And just so you know, there's no hot coffee waiting for you. There's no toilet, no toothbrush, and your one rough wool tunic smells like yesterday's stew. Welcome to peasant life. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is damp. The thatch roof overhead is already leaking again. You pull your scratchy blanket tighter, but the cold still finds your skin. You can hear your father outside already hacking at frozen mud with a shovel. The sun hasn't even risen yet, but it doesn't wait for you. If you live in 14th century France, you rise before dawn every day. No weekends, no breaks, just toil. The rooster crows and you know it's time. You push the door open and step out into the mush of manure straw and last night's rain. The yard smells of animal waste and something worse you can't quite place. Everything is damp. Your bare feet sink slightly into the ground, and you try not to gag. There's no privacy, no silence, just the constant presence of others, animals, siblings, neighbors, the priest, the reeve. Someone is always watching. You trudge to the stream with a wooden bucket. You'll need water for the weak cabbage broth your mother's about to cook. She's already huddled over a pile of embers, trying to coax life from the ashes with a damp breath of hay. She hasn't smiled in weeks. Her hands are cracked. Her back always aches. There is no word for comfort in your house it doesn't apply. The stream is nearly frozen. You crack the ice with a rock and dip the bucket. If you're lucky, no one upstream has dumped waste this morning. If you're not, well, you'll taste it later. You carry the bucket back, the cold slicing your fingers, your feet numb and purple. You're 8 years old. Your life expectancy, maybe 30 if you're lucky. Your sister died last year. Fever, gone in a day. The priest said it was God's will. Your mother didn't argue. Breakfast is a crust of rye bread if there's any left. It's hard as stone, but you gnaw it down with broth. There's never meat, not unless something dies. Your father sometimes traps rabbits, but that's illegal. The Lord owns all game. If you're caught, he can take your hands. Or worse. After breakfast, it's off to the fields. You don't own them, the Lord does, but you and your family must tend them. That's your rent for living here. A few narrow strips of land, part of the open field system. You don't get to choose your plot. And it's rarely the good stuff. Your field is shallow, stony, and soggy in winter. You walk there carrying a crooked hoe. The earth is cold and clings to your shoes in heavy globs. And then the work begins. Turn the soil, break it, haul compost, pull weeds, dig trenches for drainage. This isn't your job, it's your existence. You're not a farmer, you're a survivor, and survival is bitter work. Around midday, the church bell rings. You pause to pray. The priest says God loves the poor. You're not sure what that means when your belly's empty and your hands are bleeding. But you bow your head and whisper the Pater Noster. Maybe someone is listening. Lunch is more broth. Maybe some barley if your mother traded something at market. You sit on a log, squatting to avoid the damp ground. Your siblings are all around you, eyes half shut with exhaustion. Your father mutters about taxes. The Lord raised them again. More of your grain gone before you can store it. He's angry, but there's nothing to do. If you resist, he'll send the bailiff, or the soldiers, or worse, the church. The afternoon brings more work. You clean the pigsty. You haul stones. You patch a leak in the barn roof with soggy straw. You try to ignore the aching in your back, the chill in your chest. Everyone is coughing lately. There's been talk of plague in the next village. You don't understand it, but you know it's bad. The priest is burning incense, saying prayers in Latin. No one knows what he's saying, but it smells better than the usual stench, so no one complains. Evening comes and the sun slinks away behind the gray clouds. You trudge home aching in every bone. The hearth fire is weak and smoke curls into the room because the chimney's cracked again. Dinner is more of the same porridge, thin and gray. Someone drops a pebble in the pot, and you joke that it adds flavor. No one laughs. Your mother is silent. She's been silent more and more lately. Maybe it's the grief. Maybe it's the hunger. Maybe she's just tired of this life. Your father is sharpening tools by candlelight. His hands are black with dirt. Your little brother is asleep, already curled up in a corner like a dog. Before bed, you say your prayers, the same ones every night. You ask for strength, for food, for dry feet. You ask that your cough doesn't get worse. You ask that the rats stay out of your straw pile tonight. You ask for nothing more. And then it's back into the moldy straw, back into the cold. You hear wolves howling in the woods. You hear the old man next door coughing again. His wife died 2 days ago. You pull the blanket over your ears, trying to pretend it's warmer than it is. You fall asleep, not knowing if tomorrow will be the same or worse. But you do know one thing: this is your life. This is what it means to be a peasant in medieval France. There is no glory, no comfort, no choice. Just mud hunger, work, and prayer. And it's only just begun. Morning returns like a slap. The light creeps in through the shutter gaps, but it isn't the gentle warmth of sunrise. It's a dim gray gloom that settles over everything like a wet wool blanket. You wake up sore, your body curled around the warmth of your own breath. You scratch at your skin, irritated again by flea bites. The straw beneath you crunches and smells faintly of mildew and urine. Your younger brother had an accident during the night, and no one's cleaned it. There's no soap. There's no clean water to spare. You step outside again and feel the squelch of the wet earth between your toes. You still don't have shoes. Most peasants don't not, unless they've saved up for years or inherited a pair. Your feet are calloused, cracked, and dirty. You've long stopped caring. The chill seeps in through your skin anyway. It's late autumn now, and that means frost-biting winds and long, dark evenings. The morning meal is pitiful, a chunk of cold porridge from last night, hardened like paste. You eat in silence, sitting on a 3-legged stool that wobbles beneath you. Your mother offers you a weak smile, but her eyes are distant. She's thinking of the winter ahead. Everyone is. You only harvested a third of what you hoped for this year. Too much rain in spring, and now the Lord demands his share. What's left for your family may not last. You set out with your father to the fields again. There's no rest, not even when your joints ache or your fingers are swollen. The land never waits. You pass other villagers' faces you know well. Some wave, most keep their eyes down. No one's had good news in a long time. Today's work is clearing stubble from the barley field. You yank up soggy remnants of stalks pulling against the stubborn roots with numb hands. It's monotonous, painful, and slow. You know this field better than your own thoughts. You know where the ground dips, where the earth turns to stone, where the weeds cluster like an invasion. By midday, you stop for water lukewarm from a leather flask that smells of sheep. You share it with your father. He coughs after drinking, wiping his mouth with a sleeve slicked with mud. He's aged 10 years in the past, too. His teeth are mostly gone. His shoulders are permanently hunched, but his hands still move with the rhythm of labor. He's done this his whole life, and he'll do it until the day his body finally gives out. The reeve arrives as you work riding in on a horse too fine for anyone in the village. He's the Lord's man here to check that everything's progressing, that dues are paid, that no one's shirking. His cloak is clean. His boots are dry. He doesn't speak to you, just to your father, and only with orders. The tithe will be collected early this year, he says. The Lord has guests and needs more grain. You don't say anything, but your stomach clenches. Early tithes mean less food through winter, less flour, less everything. Once he leaves, your father swears under his breath, quietly, carefully. No one dares to raise their voice against the system. That's not just disrespectful, it's dangerous. Everything you do belongs to someone else. The food you grow, the firewood you collect, even your body in a way. You're bound to the land, and the land is bound to the Lord. You finish the day by digging a drainage ditch at the edge of the pasture. It's slow going. The clay is thick and heavy. Your arms burn. Your fingers are raw. There's no glory in this. No one is writing songs about your toil. You wonder if anyone even sees it. As evening draws near, you walk back home with your father in silence. The sun dips low, casting the sky in a pale yellow, but there's no beauty in it for you. It's just another reminder that the day is ending and the cold will settle in soon. At home, your siblings are gathered around the hearth. Your sister is spinning wool rough stuff uncleaned, but it will have to do for winter tunics. Your youngest brother is trying to catch a mouse in a wooden cup. There's laughter, but it's thin, tired, forced. Dinner is a turnip stew, mostly water. Your mother drops in a chunk of stale bread to thicken it. It helps, sort of. You eat slowly, your hands still trembling from work. You don't taste much. You've learned not to expect flavor. You eat to not feel empty. Afterward, your father reads from the one book in the house, a tattered Bible written in Latin. You don't understand the words, but the sound is familiar. Sacred. It helps some nights. Tonight, though, your mind drifts. You're thinking about the rumors. A village up the road burned. Bandits, some say. Or soldiers. Or both. No one really knows, and no one dares travel to find out. There's no safety, not really. You could do everything right, pay your taxes, follow the rules, say your prayers, and still lose everything. A sickness, a storm, a soldier's whim, and there'd be no one to protect you. Later, you step outside to relieve yourself. There's no outhouse, just a dark corner behind the barn. The wind bites your skin. You hear owls. You smell smoke from a distant fire. You wonder what it would be like to live in a city. Maybe Paris. Maybe Orléans. Somewhere with walls. With real roofs. Maybe even meat. But that's a dream. You'll never leave this village. You'll work the same soil, eat the same gruel, die the same death as your parents and grandparents. You're part of the earth here, bound to it like roots. You crawl back into your corner of the hut, trying not to wake your siblings. You clutch a scrap of wool to your chest and close your eyes. But sleep doesn't come easy. Your back hurts. Your fingers twitch from the repetitive motions of labor. You think about the Lord's manor, about the feasts they have there. You've never seen one, but you've heard tales. Roasted meat, pies, music, wine. It sounds like a storybook, like another world. And maybe it is, because it certainly isn't yours. You drift off, wondering if tomorrow will be any different. But deep down you know it won't be. This is your life, peasant life, medieval France, and winter is coming. The morning frost has crept into your bones. You wake with your arms folded tightly across your chest, legs curled, trying to preserve a little warmth. The blanket did nothing. It's damp again. The roof above you drips rhythmically, and a chill drafts through the shutter, like the breath of something watching you sleep. You can see your breath in the air. Your little brother is coughing, deep rattling. You look over and see his cheeks flushed in fever. He's wrapped in the same threadbare tunic from yesterday, and it smells sour. Your mother glances at him and then quickly away. There's nothing she can do. There's no medicine, no doctor, no herbalist you can afford. You rub your eyes and feel the scratch of grime on your skin. It's been days since you had anything like a wash, maybe weeks. You can't remember. The stream is half frozen now and no one wants to waste water on something like cleanliness. You scratch your scalp feeling the familiar scurry of lice. It's normal. Everyone's infested. Your mother is already up. She hasn't slept properly in days. She stirs a pot over the fire, more barley water, thin and bitter. It's barely enough for the younger children, let alone the rest of you. You get a wooden spoonful, and it barely wets your tongue. Today's not a fieldwork day, not for your family. It's time to do the Lord's corvée. That means free labor offered to the manor as part of your feudal duty. No pay, no food, just obligation. Refuse and you could lose your land, your home, or worse. You trudge through the morning fog toward the Lord's estate. The manor looms on a hill ringed by stone walls and surrounded by fields better tended than yours. The path there is slick with mud. You nearly slip twice, but your feet know this road. You've walked it so many times it's carved into your legs. At the gate, the steward barks orders. You and half a dozen other peasants are handed tools and sent to repair a collapsed fence. The wood is rotten and splinters easily. Your hands are already raw. The wind cuts across the hillside, and your tunic flaps uselessly against your knees. You try not to shiver, because shivering makes the work slower, and slower work earns glares from the overseer. You catch glimpses of the manor house while you work stone tall and alien. There's a chimney and smoke coils lazily from it. That means fire. Real fire. Inside, they're probably baking bread or roasting meat. You try not to think about it. You saw the Lord once last spring. He rode past on a tall horse cloaked in velvet and fur. You remember thinking he didn't look like someone who worked. And he doesn't. He doesn't have to. By midday, your arms are leaden. You can't feel your fingertips. The cold, the work, it blurs together. A break is allowed, but no food is offered. You sit on a stump, chewing on a piece of yesterday's bread you brought with you. It's frozen hard and it cracks against your teeth. A servant from the manor walks by, carrying a tray of bone scraps from the Lord's lunch. A dog follows him, tail wagging, and he tosses it a chunk of meat. You watch that meat fall into the dog's mouth. Your stomach lurches. When the fence is done, you're ordered to help drag firewood up from the woods below. It's heavy and the path is steep. Every step feels like a punishment. You don't speak, no one does. The work beats words out of you. By the time you return to the village, dusk is already settling. The sky is streaked with iron-gray clouds and a light snow has begun to fall. Your breath comes in harsh clouds. You can barely lift your feet. Inside your home, your mother is holding your brother. His fever is worse. His eyes are half closed. You kneel beside her, touching his forehead. It's burning. He mumbles something, a prayer maybe, but his lips are cracked and dry. Your father enters and looks down at the boy. He says nothing, just crouches in the corner and begins to mend the yoke for the oxen. The silence is heavier than any word. Dinner is missed tonight. There's not enough. Your portion goes to your brother. He can't even finish it. Your stomach growls, but you don't complain. Hunger is a habit. Later, your mother sends you to fetch the priest. You wrap your cloak around yourself and step back into the snow. The path to the chapel is dark. The bell tower rises like a crooked finger against the black sky. The priest is an old man, thin as a spindle, his face lined by age and worry. He listens quietly and then follows you back. He says prayers over your brother and makes the sign of the cross with a shaking hand. He leaves a small vial of holy water and tells your mother to pray. That's all he can offer. You lie down beside your brother that night, the fire barely alive. He murmurs in his sleep words you don't understand. You whisper back nonsense maybe, but it comforts you. He doesn't stir again. The wind howls outside, rattling the shutters. You're exhausted, broken, but you can't sleep. You stare at the rafters above and think of spring, if it comes, and if you survive to see it. The rooster doesn't even crow before the grief sets in. You wake to your mother's sobbing. That sharp, empty sound you've only heard once before when your sister passed last winter. This time it's your little brother. His body is still, cold. His chest isn't moving. The fever burned through him in the night, quiet and merciless, the way death often visits the poor, not with drama, but with stillness. Your mother rocks him back and forth, clutching him, like he might warm back to life. Your father doesn't speak. He stands near the hearth with his back turned, shoulders rigid. You feel like something inside your chest has folded in on itself. But grief has no luxury of time. The work waits. The Lord's land won't till itself. You help wrap your brother's body in the best cloth you have, which isn't much. It's the same rough linen you use for everything else. He's so small it doesn't take much. You lay him near the fire, not to warm him, but to keep the rats away. You'll bury him tonight if the ground isn't frozen too hard. Your mother stays behind. You, your father, and your older sister head back to the fields. No one says a word. The silence between you is louder than mourning. Even if you wanted to speak, what would you say? The sky is leaden again, hanging low like a curse. The earth is stiff, resisting the plow. The oxen are restless. One of them limps, which means another problem, because if that beast goes lame, your family's harvest next year will fail before it begins. Your father mutters under his breath, adjusting the yoke with rough fingers. The plow creaks, groaning with each pass. You follow behind, breaking clumps of soil with a hoe that barely holds together. Your sister moves slowly. Her eyes are red, her hands cracked from wind and work. There's no funeral procession, no tombstones, no rest. When peasants die, they are returned to the ground as quickly and plainly as possible. If you're lucky, the priest says a few words. If you're really lucky, someone remembers them a year later. As you work, you look up toward the church tower in the distance. It rises like a promise God is supposed to live there, above the mud, above the sorrow. but sometimes you wonder if he ever looks down. You return to the village at dusk. Your mother has already dug the shallow grave behind the chapel, near where your sister lies. The snow has started again, fine powder just enough to chill. Your father carries the small bundle wrapped in linen. The priest meets you with a lantern and a flask of something holy. The burial is brief, a verse in Latin, a sprinkle of water, a cross traced in the air. Then silence. You take turns with the spade. The dirt is stubborn and cold. Every shovelful feels like betrayal, but there's nothing else to be done. When the hole is filled, your mother places a sprig of rosemary on top. You didn't know she had any left. It must have been saved for something special. That night, dinner is skipped again. No one is hungry. Or maybe everyone is too hungry to feel it. You sit in the corner of the hut, staring into the fire. You can hear the wind slipping through the walls, sighing against the beams. It's the only sound. There's no talk of tomorrow, but tomorrow will come anyway. It always does. And when it does, it brings something else tax day. The steward returns the next morning flanked by 2 armed men. You stand beside your father as he offers sacks of barley and rye, nearly everything you've stored for winter. Your mother watches from the doorway, eyes hard. You can tell she's doing the math in her head. You all are. How many days of porridge are left now? Not enough, but arguing with the steward would be suicide. He's just a mouthpiece anyway. The Lord's ledger says what it says. Your father signs it with an X because he can't write. Most can't. Reading is a luxury of priests and nobles. As the men ride away, you look back at your family. Their faces are drawn, ashy. Not from the cold this time, from despair. Later that week, the hunger settles in. Real hunger. The kind that doesn't leave your mind. You start noticing the bark on trees and wonder if it's edible. You chew on grass just to have something in your mouth. Your mother boils weeds into a kind of soup, bitter and sharp, but better than nothing. She's always good at finding things in the forest. Nettles, sorrel, dandelion roots. Survival knowledge passed down from peasant to peasant like sacred scripture. But even that can only go so far. Your sister collapses in the field 2 days later. She's not sick, just starved. You help her up. She insists she's fine, but her legs shake. You bring her home early. Your father doesn't say anything, just watches, jaw clenched. You wonder if other villages are suffering the same. If somewhere someone has enough bread. You've heard stories of cities where markets sell spices, cheeses, and salted meats. You can't even imagine what they taste like. Sometimes people speak of running away, escaping to a monastery, or to the forest, living like a bandit. You've heard tales of peasants disappearing and reappearing as mercenaries or pilgrims. But you also hear of those caught, dragged back, and punished, hands chopped, ears sliced. So you stay. Because fear is stronger than hope. That night your mother hums a lullaby. It's the same one she sang when you were small, and it sounds like warmth. But the warmth is only in the memory, not in the hut, not in the soil, not in the cold, hard hands of winter, still waiting outside your door. And it's only the beginning of the season. The frost thickens with each passing night, a white crust blanketing the fields and turning the world brittle. You wake up with your breath puffing like smoke from your lips. Your nose burns from the cold. Your fingers curl stiffly, and even before you rise, you know something in your joints will ache until spring. If spring ever comes. Today is market day, but not the exciting kind. Not with coins jingling and stalls bursting with cheese wheels or cinnamon. No, this is peasant market, dull, gray, desperate. Your family has little to trade, but your mother insists on trying. She's bundled a few eggs, a coil of coarse wool, and a cracked jar of sour curds she hopes someone might want. You carry the bundle. Your sister walks beside you, hollow-eyed, wearing a tunic patched so many times you can't tell the original color. The path to the village green is a narrow ribbon of mud slicked with frozen ruts. Your feet slip more than once. The market is already buzzing when you arrive, but it's not cheerful. It's quiet and tense, people hunched over their wares like animals guarding scraps. The air smells of old straw smoke and cabbage. Everyone's cold, everyone's hungry, and everyone's hoping to walk away with more than they brought. You pass stalls with bent spoons, limp vegetables, faded cloth. A woman offers a bundle of onions in exchange for firewood. A man tries to sell a single shoe. Your mother barters quietly, and you stand by watching the priest pass through the crowd. He blesses a woman with a baby tied to her chest. The baby doesn't move. The mother doesn't smile. Eventually, your mother trades the wool for a few withered apples and half a loaf of coarse black bread. A decent deal, relatively speaking. You get nothing for the curds, too sour, too watery. Someone sniffs and waves it off with a grimace. Your sister trades a carved wooden spoon for a piece of salted fish. It's dry, but it might stretch 2 meals if boiled. She slips it into her pouch like it's gold. As you leave the market, you pass the stocks. A man sits locked in place, his face swollen and purple from cold. He stole from the Lord's granary, they say. Or maybe he spoke too loudly about the taxes. No one really knows. No one really asks. That night, the bread is split 6 ways. It doesn't go far. Your mother soaks hers in broth to make it last longer. You chew slowly, stretching the moment, pretending the crust is softer than it is. The days blur after that. Cold, work, aching, sleep. Cold again. You wake, you work, you return to sleep, with the same relentless rhythm as the seasons. A few days later, you're tasked with gathering firewood. The forest edge is a 2-mile walk, and even then it's dangerous. The Lord has claimed much of the nearby woodland as his own. Technically, you're not allowed to cut anything but deadfall. Taking a living branch could mean punishment, flogging, or a hefty fine you'll never afford. Still, your family needs fuel. The hearth's gone dark too many nights. Your little sister sleeps curled against the oven for warmth, but it hasn't been lit in days. You walk with your older brother, a burlap sack slung over your back, and an old hatchet in your hand. The trees are skeletal black fingers scratching at the sky. You search for dead branches, but most have been taken already. Everyone's desperate. You find a few pieces and load them carefully. At one point, your brother glances around and nods toward a thin birch limb, still alive, still green. He whispers, "No one will know." You hesitate, then nod. The hatchet bites into the wood, and it splits with a crack louder than you expected. For a moment, all is still. Then birds scatter, and you both freeze. No one comes. You run anyway. Back across the frozen fields, clutching the sack tight. You don't speak on the way home. You both know what it means to be caught. Back in the hut, your mother doesn't ask where it came from. She feeds the branch into the fire, and for the first time in days, the room is warm. Your little sister claps her hands. You don't feel warm, though. You feel watched. That night, you dream of the stalks. You dream of wolves. You dream of being dragged to the manor, hands bound, your family forced to watch. You wake with a cry, heart racing. Your father is already up, sharpening a scythe with a whetstone. He looks over but says nothing. Silence is common now. Words cost energy, and no one has any to spare. A week later, someone goes missing. Old Gervais from the hut near the stream. He hadn't shown up to tithe day. The reeve came asking questions. His door was broken down. Nothing was left but a dying fire and a pile of bones. Some say he fled. Others say the soldiers came at night. Some whisper darker things, wolves, witches, demons in the woods. Your mother just shakes her head and pulls your sister closer. You don't ask, because the truth, whatever it is, doesn't matter. He's gone, and you're still here. Still digging, still freezing, still aching, still praying, still waiting for something to change. But in medieval France, if you're a peasant, nothing ever does. The cold has settled into your very bones now. It's no longer just outside your hut or beneath your feet. It's inside you, in your chest, your thoughts. Even in your dreams, you barely remember what warmth feels like. The fire sputters low most nights, the wood too scarce to burn freely. Everyone sleeps close together, not out of affection, but necessity. Body heat is the only thing between you and the grave. The days have shrunk. The sun barely rises before it begins its slow, colorless descent. Every day looks the same: gray sky, gray soil, gray breath, fogging before your face. It's hard to tell where morning ends and evening begins. Today you're sent to help mend the roof of the reeve's shed. It's not for your family. It's not even for the Lord's direct benefit. But you're summoned all the same, because in this world your time does not belong to you. Your body is not truly yours. The thatch is frozen and brittle. It snaps in your hands. You climb the ladder slowly, boots slick with frost. Below, the reeve barks orders. His hands are warm inside thick gloves. Yours are red and stiff. You pause halfway up the ladder, the chill biting into your fingertips. You wonder just for a moment what would happen if you let go. If you just slipped. Maybe the fall would hurt. Maybe it would break something. Maybe then you could rest for a few weeks. But you keep climbing, because even pain is a privilege you can't afford. You patch the roof with bundles of straw bound in frozen twine. Your fingers bleed. You don't notice right away. You don't even care. The numbness is too complete. When you finally descend, the reeve offers you a nod. No payment, no food. Just a nod, like you're a tool that still works. You trudge home past the same crooked hedges and skeletal trees. The ground is harder now, and your feet ache from the strain. The hunger returns with a vengeance sharper somehow in the cold. It isn't just an empty stomach. It's a gnawing hollowness that seems to reach into your chest and settle behind your ribs. At home, your mother has managed to make a thin stew from dried peas and a single withered parsnip. You can smell it as you approach, the scent wafting out like a miracle. You eat your share quickly, spoon scraping the bowl. It's barely enough to take the edge off. Your father says little. He's staring into the hearth, brow furrowed. He's been quiet lately. Worry, yes, but more than that. He's calculating something. Later that night, he reveals it. He's going to offer you to the mill. You don't understand at first. You've helped at the mill before, carrying sacks of grain, hauling water. But that's not what he means. The miller is wealthy by peasant standards. He's not a noble, but he owns something that produces profit and that makes him powerful. He's been looking for an apprentice. Apprentice, of course, is a kind word. What it means is a child to do hard labor in exchange for food, a pallet in the barn, and maybe a future. You say nothing. Your father explains that it would mean one less mouth to feed, that you'd eat better there, that you'd be safer. Your mother doesn't speak, but her eyes are wet. The next day you walk with your father to the mill. It sits on the edge of the stream where the water still moves under a thick crust of ice. The wheel creaks slowly. The miller eyes you like livestock. He checks your hands, your posture, asks if you can read, of course not. Asks if you've ever lifted a full sack of grain. You nod. He grunts. Then he and your father talk in hushed tones. Silver changes hands. Your fate is sealed. You return home to gather your things, but there's little to gather. A second tunic, a bit of string, a carved button your sister gave you. You hug her before you leave, and she doesn't let go for a long time. That night you sleep in the mill barn. The straw is fresh. The rats are fewer. It smells like flour, which is strange but not unpleasant. The miller gives you chores before dawn. Water the oxen, sweep the floor, turn the grindstone when it stalls, feed the fire beneath the drying pans. It's harder than field work in some ways, less natural, more mechanical. Your arms burn in new ways. Your skin cracks again. But the food, there's more of it. Porridge thick and hot. Bread. Even cheese once a week. You're not treated cruelly. Not exactly. But you are invisible. The miller speaks only when he must. His wife never smiles. The journeyman older than you with a sour face and quick hands makes you nervous. He mutters when you're too slow. Throws things sometimes. You learn to stay quiet, to move quickly, to be small. At night you lie in the barn listening to the creak of the wheel and the scurry of mice. You miss your sister's voice, your mother's hands, the sound of the fire crackling in your family's hearth. But you don't miss the hunger. You don't miss the cold that seeped into your marrow. You don't miss the hollow eyes at the market. Still, you wonder if your father regrets it. If your mother cried after you left. If your sister looks for you in the fields. You wonder. And wondering hurts more than work. So you stop. And you sleep. Because the sun will rise again tomorrow. And you'll turn the wheel again. And maybe, just maybe, you'll survive the winter. You get used to the rhythm of the mill eventually. Not because it's easier, but because your body simply gives up resisting. There's a strange comfort in the predictability of it all. The creak of the wheel, the crunch of flour underfoot, the dull ache that settles into your arms by midday. You move like part of the machinery. You sleep like a sack of grain, and you stop expecting anything more. Every morning begins the same. The sun isn't up yet. The air inside the barn is thick with dust and mouse droppings. Your breath makes clouds in the gloom. You rise, brush the straw off your tunic, and head to the stream. The bucket's cold bites your fingers. You feed the oxen first. Then you clean the troughs, sweep the floor, and check the fire. The miller only appears after breakfast. He eats first thick slices of bread, goat cheese, sometimes even eggs. You and the journeyman wait, always second, sometimes third. But you've learned to accept it. You've learned to wait. You've learned something else too, how flour is made. Real knowledge. The stones, the sifting, the grinding, all of it becomes familiar under your fingers. There's power in that, in understanding how something works, even if it's not yours to command. Still, there's little room for mistakes. The journeyman makes sure of that. He doesn't beat you, but he threatens to. And sometimes that's worse. You flinch before he lifts his hand, and he smiles when you do. One afternoon, he sends you to retrieve a sack from the upper loft. You climb the rickety ladder, careful not to slip. The light is thin and gray. The loft smells of dust, mouse urine, and something vaguely sweet, old grain maybe. You find the sack, but it's heavier than you expected. You drag it toward the ladder, but your foot slips on the rung. You fall partway down the sack, tumbling with you landing with a dull thud. Your ankle twists beneath you. Sharp pain shoots up your leg, and for a second you see stars. The journeyman storms over, not to check if you're okay, but to check the sack. The grain is mostly intact, but he curses anyway, accuses you of being careless. He doesn't touch you, but his words sting more. Try that again, and you'll be back in the fields where you belong, he spits. You nod, biting your tongue. You limp for the next 3 days, hiding the pain. The miller doesn't ask. No one does. Later that week, a noble carriage rolls through the village. It's rare to see one so close. Gold trim, tall horses, a crest you don't recognize. Everyone stops to watch. Peasants bow low like the dirt is sacred under such wheels. From the shadows of the mill house, you see the noblewoman inside, veiled and fine. She doesn't look at anyone, doesn't even glance toward the village. You feel something strange, then something between envy and anger. She will never know this life. Never carry sacks or nurse a twisted ankle in silence. Never kneel in frozen mud or wonder if her dinner will come. She floats above it all, and you are buried beneath it. That night, as you lie in the barn, you hear laughter drifting from the manor down the hill. A feast, perhaps, or a wedding. Music and wine and warmth echoing through the trees. You press your face into the straw and try not to listen. You remember what your father once said, if you were born to till the earth, don't waste time staring at the sky. But sometimes the sky stares back, and you can't help but dream. A few days later, the miller sends you to the market with a bag of flour. Alone, for the first time. It's a test, you think. Maybe a reward. Or maybe he just doesn't care what happens. You walk slowly. The bag is heavy and the road is uneven. But you take it in. The smell of smoke, the calls of crows, the hush of trees whispering to each other. At the market, you make the trade. The merchant gives you a small pouch of silver coins, and you clutch it tight. Your heart thumps wildly, so much responsibility. On the way back, you pass the chapel. The bell tolls as you approach. A funeral. You stop outside the low wall and watch as a small group gathers around a shallow grave. A child wrapped in linen, maybe 5 years old. The mother sobs into her hands. You feel that ache again, that familiar hollow loss. You don't know the family, but it doesn't matter. You know the pain. You keep walking, slowly, carefully. When you return to the mill, you hand over the coins. The miller counts them in silence, then nods once. You're dismissed. That night, he lets you eat first, only by a few seconds, but it's something. You eat in silence, wondering if it was a fluke or a shift, a new beginning maybe, or just a lull before more of the same. Still, it feels like the air is different, like the silence might carry something else besides suffering. You're still a peasant, still barefoot, still aching. But for the first time in a long while, you feel noticed, and that in this life is its own kind of miracle. The snow comes heavier now, drifting in thick, silent sheets. The landscape transforms into a world of whiteness, fields erased. Roads, vanished roofs hunched beneath weight. The trees bow under it, and the wind howls like a living thing. You wake with ice crusting the edge of your blanket, and your breath forming a fine mist that hangs in the still air. The barn roof groans above you. You wonder if it might collapse in the night. The mill slows to a crawl. The stream that powers the wheel has frozen over at the edges, sluggish and weak. The grindstone only turns at half speed, and the oxen huff steam as they trudge their short, miserable loops. Even the journeyman seems quieter now, his sarcasm blunted by the cold. No one yells when the work is slow, what can be done after all. The miller keeps most of the heat for the house. You're still sleeping in the barn, but the cold inside is indistinguishable from the cold out. You wrap rags around your hands and feet, but the ache never leaves. Some nights you rub your limbs just to make sure you can still feel them. You've heard stories of fingers blackening, falling off. Frostbite, they call it. Still, you work. You don't stop. You can't. You've learned to load sacks quickly, even with half-frozen joints. You've memorized the rhythm of the gears, the song of the stones, the tug of a full bag just before it tips. You no longer wince at the ache in your back. It's simply there now, like your breath or your shadow. One morning, the miller calls you inside. His kitchen is warmer than any place you've been in months. The hearth blazes and a pot of stew bubbles on the fire. You try not to inhale too deeply to avoid seeming greedy. He doesn't offer you a bowl, just a seat. You sit stiffly, unsure. He looks at you a long time before speaking. He's older than you realized. His beard is gray now, and his hands are more gnarled than your father's. "I'm losing strength," he says quietly. "Can't haul like I used to. The journeyman's too slow, and not half as clever." You blink. He notices. You've learned quick. You don't talk back. You think. You don't know what to say. You just nod. He takes a sip of stew, wipes his mouth. "If I die with no son, everything I have reverts to the Lord," he mutters. "Even the oxen, even the stones, wasteful that." Then something astonishing. He asks if you'd stay. As an apprentice truly this time. Not just labor, not just hands, a future, a trade. It hits you slowly. You're not sure it's real. But he's serious. "You keep your head down," he says, "and in time I'll pass the mill to you. Name you my heir if the Lord permits. You want to shout, to weep, to run back to your mother and tell her you'll never go hungry again. But you don't. You simply nod. Slowly. "Good," he says, then dismisses you. Back in the barn, you sit in silence. The dust swirls in the beams of pale light. Mice rustle in the straw. But everything feels different. You think of your father bent over in the fields, your mother hands red with cold, your sister eyes hollow but always watching. You wonder if this means you've made it, escaped. But nothing's that simple. Because weeks later, the fever comes. It starts with a cough from the journeyman, then chills, then shivers so strong he can't work. The miller sends him home. You take over his duties, pushing your body beyond exhaustion, grinding alone, lifting double, fire stoking, sweeping, hauling. The mill keeps running because you keep it running. But then the miller begins to cough too. He tries to hide it, tries to push through. But soon his face goes pale, his lips dry and cracked. He stops eating, stops giving orders. You tend to him, bringing broth when you can spare it, wiping his forehead, trying everything your mother taught you. You pray. You whisper every Latin word you remember from the chapel. You beg God to spare him. He is not a kind man, but he is your only hope. By the fourth day he can't rise. By the fifth he's cold. You bury him behind the mill, alone. No priest, no rites. Just a crude wooden cross and a few words mumbled from memory. Then you wait and wait for someone to come. But no one does. Not at first. The mill is too far from the manor, and no one comes out in deep winter unless they must. So for days you live in silence. You tend the fire, feed the oxen, grind the little grain that remains. It's as if the world has forgotten the mill exists. Then one morning riders arrive, 2 of them, soldiers of the Lord. They ask questions. You answer, truthfully, carefully. They take the ledger, the key, the store of grain. You are not punished, but you are dismissed. The Lord will appoint a new miller, they say. Someone loyal, someone chosen. You are not chosen. You walk back to your village alone. Bag slung over your shoulder, future gone like mist on cold breath. When you reach your family's hut, your sister sees you first. She runs. Your mother weeps. Your father embraces you like a ghost returned. The hut is still small, still cold, still cracked. But now you're older. Now you know the world a little better. And you know this, no matter how high you climb, the ladder can still break. Especially if you were born in the mud. Life back in the village doesn't pause to welcome you. There's no time for long stories or dramatic reunions. You arrive, and within the hour your father hands you a hoe and points toward the fields. The ground is still half frozen, but spring is threatening to return. That means work. Endless work. Your body protests. After months of pushing grindstones and lifting sacks, your muscles have changed. Hardened in certain ways, weakened in others. The rhythm of fieldwork feels foreign again, less precise, more raw. Your hands blister anew. You try not to think about the mill, about what you almost had, about the warm hearth you tended, the food that came regularly, the future that was promised with a single glance and taken without a word. But your mind drifts there in the quiet moments. When the birds begin to return, when the frost begins to soften in the soil, when your little sister hums the same tune your mother used to sing during better seasons. The village has changed in your absence, subtly. 2 families are gone, swept away by sickness, some say. 1 man taken by the Lord's men for failing to pay his due. A new family moved into the crumbling hut by the stream. They don't speak much. They look half-starved. You recognize that look. You wore it not long ago. Your sister is taller now, her voice steadier. She watches you more closely than before, as if trying to understand what happened during your time away. You don't tell her much. There's no point. Words don't change what is. Your mother is thinner, her back more bent. But her hands are still swift when she kneads dough, still gentle when she fixes your tunic by firelight. You sit beside her some nights, watching her fingers move with quiet skill. You say thank you more often than you used to. She doesn't say much in return. She just smiles softly, sadly. One afternoon, the priest comes to the field. He carries a letter sealed in wax bearing the mark of the Lord's steward. He hands it to your father and waits. Your father reads it slowly, lips moving. Then he hands it to you. The letter offers a decree, a new tax, a spring levy, a gift to the Lord to celebrate the birth of his grandson. It's not optional. You do the math in your head. There is no way. Even with a perfect harvest, even if no one falls sick, even if the rains come just right, it still won't be enough. That night, your father speaks low by the fire. He says you may have to marry soon. Not for love, not for choice, for alliance, for grain, for survival. The girl's name is Leonore. Her family keeps sheep on the hillside. She's a year younger than you. You've spoken maybe twice. You nod. What else can you do? In the village, marriage is rarely romance. It's a trade just like wool or wood or wheat. You meet her 2 days later. She's pale, quiet, and sharp-eyed. You can tell she's scared. You try to smile. It feels strange on your face. You speak of the weather, the fields, the sheep. She listens, occasionally nods. Then she says something unexpected. I don't want to die in childbirth. You pause, unsure what to say. She shrugs. 3 sisters, gone, all trying to bring new life. You look away. The fire crackles between you. I'll try not to make you sad, you whisper. She laughs once, dry, not cruel. Then you're already better than most. Your courtship lasts 2 weeks. There's no wedding feast, just a blessing from the priest and a single loaf of bread passed between families. You move into a corner of her family's hut. It smells different, warmer somehow. You work beside her. You carry buckets together. You fix fences. You tend sheep when her father's too tired. And slowly, something fragile forms between you. Not love, not yet. But partnership. And in this world, that's the most precious currency there is. The months pass. The lambs come in spring. Your fields begin to green. There's still hunger, still pain. But there are days now, just a few, when you catch yourself humming while working. There's laughter at the well. Not often, but enough. A new baby is born to a neighbor. It survives. People bring herbs and cheese and prayers. They speak of omens, of good seasons. You find yourself hoping. It scares you. Hope is dangerous. It opens cracks in the armor you've built around your soul. But even still, it comes, quietly, like sunlight through the cracks in a shutter. You sit one evening with Leonore beneath a sky full of stars. The fire is low. The sheep bleat softly in the distance. She leans against your shoulder. We're still here, she says. And you nod. Because somehow, despite everything, you are. Still here. The summer creeps in like a soft sigh, subtle at first, the kind of warmth you almost don't believe in after the cruel stretch of cold. The wind no longer stings your skin. The ground softens. Grass returns to the paths. The trees bloom. There are even flowers again, bright little bursts of color against a world that had been gray for so long. You rise before dawn, as always, but this time the air doesn't bite. Instead, it wraps around you like a promise. For the first time in a long while, you stretch your limbs without pain. Your body remembers warmth like an old friend. The sheep are birthing now. Leonore guides them with steady hands, whispering to them like they can understand. You stand nearby with clean cloth and warm water. Your hands move without thinking. You've both done this before, birth and death in the same breath. Some lambs survive. Some don't. That's just how it is. But when one particularly weak one shudders into life and then slowly begins to breathe, you and Leonore exchange a look. No words. Just relief. The fields are calling too. Your father has marked the edges of the barley, and the oats are growing faster than expected. There's still a long way to go, but for the first time in months, the soil doesn't resist you. It welcomes the plow. You feel stronger now, not invincible but hardened, like wood that's been through fire and didn't burn. The village, too, seems to breathe again. Faces brighten. Children laugh again in the dust. The priest even smiles once during a blessing. And yet summer brings its own burdens. The tax collectors return, always. This time they carry a new scroll, a census. They need numbers, they say. How many live in your house? How many sheep? How much land? How much grain? It's a reminder that no matter how much work you do, someone else keeps the score. But you list it all carefully, honestly, because you've seen what happens to liars. Later in the fields, you and Leonore count the stalks as you walk between rows. She calculates how much flour they'll yield. You estimate what portion will vanish to the tithe, the tax, the church, the mill. You both know the truth. What you sow and what you keep are never the same. Still, you plant, you harvest, because hunger doesn't wait for justice. One afternoon, while stacking bundles of barley, you hear distant hooves. You look up to see a rider approaching. Not a taxman, this one wears the colors of the Lord's house, but rides alone fast. Everyone stops working as he dismounts and unrolls a scroll. The reeve reads it aloud in the village square. War. Again. Not here, not yet. But far to the north, a border dispute. The king calls for levies. Men from every village must prepare. A list will be drawn. Names chosen. You feel Leonore's fingers grip yours. Your father shifts beside you. His jaw clenches. There's no time to argue. No one dares. Later that night, over a bowl of onion broth, you speak quietly. Your name isn't on the list yet. But you're of age. You're strong. You're expendable. And you know what that means. If war comes, you'll go. Or someone else will go in your place, maybe your father, maybe a neighbor, maybe a boy not yet grown. Either way, someone will die. You step outside after supper. The sky is thick with stars. You can hear an owl somewhere deep in the woods. Leonore joins you. She carries a wool shawl and wraps it around both your shoulders. You'll come back, she says. Not a question, a command. You nod, but you both know it's not your choice. Still, her belief matters. It holds you up. The next morning, the reeve posts a list on the chapel door. 5 names. Yours isn't one of them yet, but it could be next time. So you work harder. You build a stronger fence. You help your father clean the tools. You shear the sheep with Leonore until your fingers blister. Because even if war doesn't call you, life will. And life in this place always asks for everything. The days grow longer. The sun bakes the soil. The crops rise inch by inch. You drink from the stream. You sleep in the dust. You dream of quiet. You dream of children who might live. Of winters that don't kill. You dream of more, but mostly you dream of just enduring, of making it through another season, of breathing through one more tax, one more harvest, one more cruel decree. Because in medieval France, a peasant's greatest achievement is not wealth, it's survival. And every day you open your eyes, you earn that title all over again. The sun has scorched the earth to a brittle crust now. Summer deepens not into leisure or rest, but into harder labor. The fields blaze beneath a sky that rarely clouds, and every breath you take tastes of dust. The wheat stands tall, golden, and ready, but so are the expectations. The harvest must be perfect, and it must be swift. You and Leonore work shoulder to shoulder. From dawn until the last sliver of light fades, you move through the rows. Sickle in hand, backs, bent legs aching. The rhythm becomes hypnotic cut, gather, bind haul. Sweat drips into your eyes. Your shirt sticks to your back. You don't speak. You conserve every ounce of energy for the next swing, the next bundle. The others join you, your father, your sister, even the priest who takes off his robe and ties back his graying hair. In harvest season, all hands must serve. The Lord's men will take their portion whether the crop is bountiful or not. And this year it is bountiful, but that doesn't mean you will be. At midday, you rest in the thin shade of a hay cart. Leonore hands you a strip of bread coarse and dry and a flask of watered ale. You eat without tasting. Your hands are blistered. Your muscles burn. But beneath all that, something else stirs. Pride. Not the kind sung in ballads, not the kind that builds statues, but the kind you earn in silence when the wheat falls in clean cuts, when the bales stack high, when the barn creaks with fullness. You're not free. You don't own the land. But for a moment, it feels like something belongs to you. Then the Lord's steward arrives. He comes with a pair of carts and 4 men, eyes sharp and voices curt. They move through the barns like hawks counting measuring marking. You try not to watch. You know what's coming. They take 1/3 of everything. They don't ask. They don't explain. They simply load the sacks onto their carts and vanish into the tree line. Your father stares after them. His lips press into a line. Your sister wipes her eyes. You return to the barn and count what's left. It might last. If the winter isn't cruel. If the rats stay away. If no one gets sick. That's too many ifs, but it's all you have. That evening, a feast is held in the square, not grand, but as close as your village gets to celebration. A fire is lit. Bread is passed around. Someone roasts a pig, the smell filling the air like a spell. Children dance. Old songs are sung. For a while the burdens loosen. You and Leonore sit near the edge of the firelight. She leans against you. Her head is warm on your shoulder. She hums softly, one of her shepherd's tunes, the kind that sounds like wind on the hill. You watch the flames flicker and think, maybe, just maybe, this is what peace feels like. But even in celebration, the weight never lifts completely. A neighbor, Etienne, stumbles into the square late, blood on his sleeve. His youngest was bitten by a boar in the woods. He came for help, for herbs, for prayer. The priest rises. So does your mother. You and Leonore follow. The boy doesn't make it. The wound festers. The fever comes. By morning, he's gone. The feast is over. The field returns to silence. The barn feels emptier. That's how it goes in this life. A good day cracks open into sorrow without warning. You learn to expect it. You learn not to trust too much in joy. Later that week, the Lord's men return. Not for tax, this time for soldiers. 2 more names added to the levy. One of them is Mathieu, the quiet boy with the stammer. He's barely 16. He's never held a sword. He cries when they call his name. His mother begs. His father curses. It changes nothing. You help him pack. A crust of bread, a wool tunic, a carved token from his sister. Before he goes, he hugs you, tightly. You want to tell him it'll be all right, but you don't lie, because you've seen enough to know the truth. After the soldiers leave, Leonore finds you in the pasture. She doesn't speak at first, just rests her hand on yours. Then she says, We should build another shed for the grain, so it lasts longer this year. You nod, because that's what you do. You keep moving. You keep building, even as others are taken, even as your strength fades, even as hope thins. You build, because survival isn't just in the body, it's in the will. And tonight, as the stars return to the sky and the village settles into exhausted sleep, you promise yourself you will outlast this season. You will outlast whatever comes next, because that's what peasants do. You endure. By early autumn, the wind changes. It grows sharper, thinner, carrying the first warnings of the coming cold. The leaves begin to curl and yellow, and the days start shrinking again, just a little at first, but enough for you to notice. The sun lingers less, and the chill returns in the morning, clinging to your bones like a shadow from last year that never quite left. You're stacking firewood when it hits you. Winter is already waiting, watching, creeping closer with each fallen leaf. This time you're better prepared. The shed you and Leonore built stands proud beside the hut, packed tightly with grain and root vegetables. You patched the roof with newer thatch, and your sister even stitched the drafty corners of the shutters with scraps of wool. It won't be warm exactly, but it will be survivable. And for a peasant, that's as good as luxury. Still, nothing ever holds for long. The rats come first. You hear them before you see them scratching in the night. Tiny claws on wood, tiny teeth on sacks of barley. Your father sets traps. You bait them with crumbs and pray it's enough. But they always return. They always find a way. Then the rumors start again. A sickness in a village 3 days' walk from yours. A girl dead in her sleep. A man coughing blood into his palms. The priest begins burning herbs during Mass, waving them like incense to purify the air. He speaks of penance, of God's punishment, of judgment for hidden sins. People listen. People always listen when they're afraid. Your sister finds a dead crow by the well. Its eyes are missing. Your mother buries it without a word. Fear is quiet, but it spreads fast. You and Leonore try to keep busy. The fields need clearing. The sheep need mending before the frost. You dry herbs, salt the last fish, and bundle kindling into ropes for quicker burning. You plan. You brace. You pray. One morning, while turning compost near the field edge, you find a coin. A single silver denier, half buried in the mud. It's old, worn, worth more than anything in your house. Your heart hammers in your chest. You show it to your father. He examines it slowly, rubbing it between his fingers. "Bury it again," he says. You stare at him. If they know you have it, he mutters, they'll take it. Or worse, so you do. Because your father has lived long enough to know that in this world, wealth is more dangerous than poverty. You go about your work, but the weight of that hidden silver sits heavy in your thoughts. That same week, the Lord returns. Not in person, he rarely leaves his manor, but through his reeve and a pale, humorless clerk with a fresh scroll and a sharp quill. They're here to assess holdings for the winter grain tithe. You show them what you have, some of it. You hide the rest. Not out of greed, out of fear. Out of a desperate instinct to preserve what little might carry you through the dark months ahead. The clerk makes his notes. The reeve barely looks at you. And just like that, your winter becomes smaller. The grain shed is still half full. You should be grateful. But all you feel is hollow. One night a dog is heard howling outside the village. Then silence. The next morning 2 chickens are gone from old Sabine's coop. No footprints, no signs, just feathers. Wolves, they say, or spirits, or maybe just thieves. No one knows for sure. No one ever does. You begin sleeping with a small knife tucked beneath your straw. Leonore does the same. The nights are longer now. The air bites again. The light fades faster. Your mother begins to cough. Not a deep one. Not yet. But it lingers. You watch her movements more closely. How she winces when she bends. How she rests more often. Your sister notices too. You gather herbs. You steep roots. You boil everything you can find in water until the taste makes you gag. It helps, a little, but you know what's coming. Winter. Always winter. The village begins to fold in on itself. Less laughter. More muttering. Doors stay closed longer. People walk with their heads down. Even the priest seems quieter now, his sermons more subdued, more sorrowful. One Sunday he reads from the Psalms and pauses halfway through. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, he says, voice cracking. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. No one speaks after, not even the children. You and Leonore walk home in silence, your hands intertwined, not for affection, but reassurance. Proof that you're still here, that you're still alive. Later that week, your sheep begin to die, one by one. No clear cause, no visible wounds, just stillness in the morning and glassy eyes in the straw. You bury them quietly without ceremony. There's no time for grief. Only action. You trade one of your last sacks of oats for a poultice the herbal woman swears will help. It doesn't. You bury another sheep the next day. Then, in the middle of the night, a scream pierces the village. You sit upright. So does Leonore. Then comes another scream. Not words, just pain, long and raw. You run outside barefoot, cold, stinging your feet, and you see flames rising from a hut near the center of the square. Neighbors run with buckets. Water sloshes. Smoke thickens. By dawn, the hut is gone. 2 lives with it. No one knows what started the fire. A candle, maybe. A fallen ember. Maybe despair. You don't ask. You just help dig the graves. The earth is hardening again, and winter once more opens its jaws. The first snowfall arrives quietly, just before dawn. No trumpets, no storm, only a faint, persistent whisper against the roof. You wake to a pale light filtering through the wooden shutters, softer than usual, and a strange stillness. When you open the door, the world has changed. Everything is white. The mud is hidden. The thorns, the rot, the stains of toil, all erased beneath a sheet of silence. For a fleeting second, it's beautiful, peaceful even. You stand barefoot in the doorway, breath clouding, heart oddly light. Then the wind cuts through your tunic, and the illusion shatters. The beauty was only skin deep. Beneath the snow is the same frozen ground, the same broken fences, the same fear of hunger that's haunted you since last year. Leonore steps beside you and exhales slowly. It's early, she says. We're not ready. And she's right. The sheep, already fewer in number, huddle together in the corner of the shed, their breath rising in soft columns. You feed them a little more than usual, watching their sides for signs of sickness. After last month's losses, each one is precious like coins you can't afford to lose. Inside the house, your mother's cough has worsened. It rattles her whole chest now, and her hands tremble when she lifts the cup of broth. She tries to wave off the concern. Just the chill, she says, voice hoarse. It's nothing. But everyone knows what it means when a peasant coughs through winter. There's no firewood left in the stack. You and your father take axes to the forest knowing full well what you're risking. You can only cut what's dead. That's the law. But the dead branches are buried under snow, brittle and useless. You pass by the spot where you found the silver denier months ago. You glance at the earth beneath the snow, and you think of digging it back up. Maybe this is the moment. Maybe now, with the world frozen and everyone desperate, it might buy medicine, or meat, or safety. But you don't dig, because silver can't stop death, only delay it. You return with half a bundle of kindling. It burns fast, too fast. That night your father pulls you aside, says the Lord's steward has begun inspecting livestock again. Rumor is he's collecting donations to support the levy, meaning if you own anything useful, it won't be yours for long. You hide the remaining sheep deeper in the woodshed. Cover them with hay. If they bleat you, hush them gently. You sleep light now, listening for hoofbeats in the snow. Leonore keeps the house quiet. She crushes dried herbs with a mortar and pestle mixes poultices for your mother's chest. She wraps scarves tight around her head before stepping outside. She says little, but you watch her move with the kind of strength that doesn't announce itself, it just endures. One morning you find your sister sitting beside your mother's bed holding her hand. Her eyes are red. Your mother is asleep, breath thin and shallow. You bring water. Your sister doesn't speak. She just lifts the cup and wets your mother's lips. Later, you go to the priest. You ask for the sacrament. He hesitates. Not because he doesn't care, but because so many have asked already. There are only so many hours in the day. Only so much oil left for the lamp. But he comes. He kneels beside her, whispers the words, anoints her forehead. She smiles once. A small thing, barely there. But it's the most peace you've seen on her face in weeks. She lasts another day. Maybe two. Then she's gone. You dig the grave with your father. Your hands blister from the frozen soil. Your breath burns in your lungs. Your tears freeze on your cheeks before they fall. The priest says the words again. This time slowly, as if he knows how many more he'll need to say this winter. You plant rosemary at her grave, like she did for your brother. Leonore doesn't cry. She only holds your sister while she cries. You sit by the hearth that night, staring into the embers. The silence isn't peaceful. It's heavy, like a lid sealing something in. You whisper your prayers into the smoke, not for miracles, not for joy, just for enough food, enough wood, enough strength. The next morning it's colder, so cold that the frost creeps across the inside of the windows. So cold that your breath lingers in the air like a ghost. Your sister doesn't want to leave her bed. She curls beneath the blanket, quiet still. Leonore rubs her feet, makes tea from pine needles and bark. You go outside and check the sheep. One is dead. You don't bury it. You drag it to the back strip, the hide, and butcher what you can. The meat is thin, the ribs too sharp. But it's food. You salt it, store it in cloth. Say nothing to the steward when he passes through, later sniffing the air like a dog. Each night grows longer. The stars hang lower as if watching. The wind howls like a warning. But still you're here. Still you rise. Still you work. Because the snow may cover everything, but it cannot bury your will. And as long as that burns inside you, however dim, you are not done. The wind moans low across the fields now like the voice of something ancient and angry. Snow has hardened into sheets of ice blanketing every path, every rooftop, every silent grave. Nothing moves quickly. The village has grown still, not with peace, but with exhaustion. Even the animals huddle silently in their stalls, their breath thick and steaming. You wake before dawn, not out of habit anymore, but out of necessity. The cold doesn't let you sleep. It presses against your bones like a question you can't answer. The fire has gone out again. You rise and rub your limbs to life, then move to relight it with what little wood remains. Leonore is already up tending to your sister. The girl sleeps deeply now, not from rest, but from fatigue. Food is nearly gone. The salted sheep meat is down to rinds and sinew. The broth is thin and bitter. You chew slowly, eyes on the shutter, as the wind tries to creep through the cracks. It's nearly Christmas. The priest says this is a holy time, that we must be grateful, that the Savior came poor, wrapped in cloth laid in straw. You think about that as you wrap another shawl around your sister's frame. You think about straw and cloth, and how much warmer they probably were in Bethlehem than you are now. You go to the forest even though your father warns you. There are rumors, bandits, wolves, even desperate villagers from elsewhere. But you go anyway, because you need wood. Because the cold is no longer a threat, it's a predator. You carry the axe in one hand, a rope in the other. Every tree looks the same now, branches black against the white. You follow deer tracks deeper than you should. The forest muffles everything. Snow swallows every sound. You find dead wood beneath a tangle of brambles. It takes time cutting through the brush, sawing quietly, piling the branches. Your fingers go numb halfway through, but you keep working. Pain is a language you speak fluently now. Then a sound. Not an animal. A footstep. Then another. You freeze. Out of the trees, a figure appears. Not a soldier. Not a noble. Just a man. Ragged. Thin. Eyes sunken. A peasant like you, but something's wrong. He stares at you, at the axe, at the bundle, then at your hands. He doesn't speak. You lower the axe, he lowers his eyes, then walks away, slowly. You let him. You wonder how many others are out here, foraging, searching, desperate. You wonder how close you are to becoming one of them. You return home with your bundle. Leonore meets you at the door, her face tight with worry. You hand her the wood, then collapse beside the hearth. That night your sister has a fever. You press cloth to her forehead. You sing softly. You pray not the Latin prayers the priest says, but the ones your mother used, the ones whispered between mouthfuls of barley and tears. Outside the snow falls again. Thick, soft, relentless. The next morning the priest visits. He brings a small candle, some dried lavender. Says it's a gift for the holy season. Says he's making rounds. Says he's praying for everyone. He doesn't ask for food. Doesn't ask for warmth. Just sits by the fire a while. Talks to your sister in a low voice. Then blesses her. Before he leaves, he takes your hand. Presses something into it. A single clove of garlic. It's all I have left, he says. You nod. And somehow that small clove feels like a miracle. Leonore slices it thin and adds it to the broth. The smell alone lifts your spirits. For a moment, the room feels warm. You remember your mother's stories, how garlic was protection. From spirits, from illness, from evil. You let yourself believe it. That night, you sit by the fire with Leonore. Your sister sleeps, fever cooled. Your father snores softly on the floor. You hold hands beneath the blankets. Not out of fear, not out of hunger, out of something else, out of love. You don't say it, but you feel it. And in a winter like this, that's more than enough. Tomorrow the cold will return, the wind will bite, the hunger will grow. But tonight the fire crackles gently, and for once the silence is kind. The wind moans low across the fields now like the voice of something ancient and angry. Snow has hardened into sheets of ice, blanketing every path, every rooftop, every silent grave. Nothing moves quickly. The village has grown still, not with peace, but with exhaustion. Even the animals huddle silently in their stalls, their breath thick and steaming. You wake before dawn, not out of habit anymore, but out of necessity. The cold doesn't let you sleep. It presses against your bones like a question you can't answer. The fire has gone out again. You rise and rub your limbs to life, then move to relight it with what little wood remains. Leonore is already up tending to your sister. The girl sleeps deeply now, not from rest, but from fatigue. Food is nearly gone. The salted sheep meat is down to rinds and sinew. The broth is thin and bitter. You chew slowly, eyes on the shutter as the wind tries to creep through the cracks. It's nearly Christmas. The priest says this is a holy time, that we must be grateful, that the Savior came poor, wrapped in cloth, laid in straw. You think about that as you wrap another shawl around your sister's frame. You think about straw and cloth, and how much warmer they probably were in Bethlehem than you are now. You go to the forest even though your father warns you. There are rumors, bandits, wolves, even desperate villagers from elsewhere. But you go anyway, because you need wood, because the cold is no longer a threat, it's a predator. You carry the axe in one hand, a rope in the other. Every tree looks the same now, branches black against the white. You follow deer tracks deeper than you should. The forest muffles everything. Snow swallows every sound. You find dead wood beneath a tangle of brambles. It takes time cutting through the brush, sawing quietly, piling the branches. Your fingers go numb halfway through, but you keep working. Pain is a language you speak fluently now. Then a sound. Not an animal. A footstep. Then another. You freeze. Out of the trees, a figure appears. Not a soldier. Not a noble. Just a man. Ragged. Thin. Eyes sunken. A peasant like you, but something's wrong. He stares at you, at the axe, at the bundle, then at your hands. He doesn't speak. You lower the axe. He lowers his eyes, then walks away slowly. You let him. You wonder how many others are out here, foraging, searching, desperate. You wonder how close you are to becoming one of them. You return home with your bundle. Leonore meets you at the door, her face tight with worry. You hand her the wood, then collapse beside the hearth. That night your sister has a fever. You press cloth to her forehead. You sing softly. You pray not the Latin prayers the priest says, but the ones your mother used. The ones whispered between mouthfuls of barley and tears. Outside the snow falls again. Thick, soft, relentless. The next morning the priest visits. He brings a small candle, some dried lavender. Says it's a gift for the holy season. Says he's making rounds. Says he's praying for everyone. He doesn't ask for food. doesn't ask for warmth, just sits by the fire a while, talks to your sister in a low voice, then blesses her. Before he leaves, he takes your hand, presses something into it. A single clove of garlic. "It's all I have left," he says. You nod, and somehow that small clove feels like a miracle. Leonore slices it thin and adds it to the broth. The smell alone lifts your spirits. For a moment the room feels warm. You remember your mother's stories, how garlic was protection. From spirits, from illness, from evil. You let yourself believe it. That night, you sit by the fire with Leonore. Your sister sleeps fever-cooled. Your father snores softly on the floor. You hold hands beneath the blankets, not out of fear, not out of hunger, out of something else, out of love. You don't say it, but you feel it. And in a winter like this, that's more than enough. Tomorrow the cold will return, the wind will bite, the hunger will grow. But tonight the fire crackles gently, and for once the silence is kind. The end of winter comes not with fanfare, but with a slow, stubborn drip, a trickle from the eaves, a soft crack in the ice that lines the stream. The snow doesn't vanish, it withdraws inch by inch, like a tired beast retreating into the shadows. You notice it first in the mud. It returns to the paths thick and wet, coating your boots and clinging to your thoughts. One morning the frost is gone from the inside of your window. You press your fingers against the wood and feel dampness, not ice. That alone feels like a blessing. Your sister begins to sit up again. She eats. Only a little, but it's more than she did for weeks. You watch her movements the way you once watched the weather closely, nervously waiting for signs. She speaks too. A few words. A request for water. A laugh even small and hoarse but real. Leonore smiles when she hears it. You catch your breath and try not to hope too quickly. The priest says Lent has begun, that it's a time of preparation, that we should look forward to Easter and resurrection and renewal. But when he says it this year, you can tell it's different. His eyes are red. His steps are slower. He buried 6 villagers this winter, maybe more. He doesn't list them. He doesn't have to. Everyone remembers. Still, he lights the candles on Sunday. Still, he reads from the book. Still, he blesses the children and prays over the sick. Because if there's anything you've learned, it's this: even the smallest acts of faith are acts of resistance. You begin walking farther each day just to see what's survived. The woods are still mostly bare, but green shoots push through the snowmelt. Wild onions, nettles, tiny buds on skeletal trees. You call Leonore to see. She crouches beside you, brushing soil from the leaves. Her smile returns quiet and round like the moon. You decide together to plant early. It's a risk. The frost might return. But the seed has been waiting too long in your hands, and so have you. Your father digs slowly now. The winter aged him like a storm ages a tree. He stands but with scars. You work beside him. You don't need to speak. The rhythm is enough. The grain shed is nearly empty, but the soil is waking up. The oxen are lean, but they still pull. And your hands, though cracked and calloused, still know how to sow. You bury the seeds like prayers. The days stretch again, a little longer, a little warmer. Your bones begin to thaw. One evening, a child is born in the village. A boy. His mother nearly died, but she didn't. And neither did he. People gather outside her hut to hear him cry. You all smile. Some cry. The priest says nothing, just holds the child and closes his eyes. It feels like a turning, like something has loosened in the sky. You return home and share the last of the salted meat with your father, your sister Leonore. No one speaks, but something hangs in the air between you, something fragile but radiant. Hope. Not the loud kind, not the kind shouted from towers, but the kind you carry deep inside. The kind that survives frost and famine and grief. The kind that comes back with the birds. You lie beside Leonore that night, her hand wrapped in yours. The stars are back glittering like embers in a hearth. You remember how a year ago you woke up to the same cold wind, the same drafty shutters, the same empty stomach. You've lost so much since then. But you're still here, still breathing, still working, still hoping. And you realize something. This life, it doesn't get easier, but you've grown stronger, not just in your arms or your back, but in your spirit, in your silence, in your refusal to give in. You are a peasant. You have nothing, and yet you've built everything that matters, with dirt on your hands, with fire in your chest, with love, with loss, and with the quiet, holy courage to wake up again tomorrow, even when it hurts, even when it's hard. Because tomorrow there will be soil to turn, seeds to plant, bread to knead, and life, however fragile, however brief to be lived. Still. Again. Always. So now as the wind softens and the shutters stop rattling, you can rest. You've lived a full year in the shoes of a medieval French peasant, and you've survived. Barely, yes. Bruised, absolutely. But somehow, despite everything, despite hunger, death, taxes, cold, you're still breathing. You've walked across frozen fields before sunrise. You've watched loved ones vanish like smoke. You've bent your back under grain sacks huddled beneath a leaking roof and whispered prayers into the dark, not knowing if anyone would listen. But now, you've made it through the worst of it. Spring is on its way. You can hear it in the quiet drip of melted snow from the eaves. You can feel it in the way the air no longer cuts your skin, but brushes past like a sigh. You've earned this moment, this soft pause. Let your limbs settle. Let your breath even out. You've lived another life tonight. Not a glamorous one. Not the kind sung by minstrels or painted in chapels, but a life that mattered. A life where each small act, planting, mending, holding on, was a triumph. So now let that world fade away. Let the snow-covered fields, the flickering hearth, the distant toll of the chapel bell all melt into dream. You're safe now. Warm, still. The season of suffering is behind you. Ahead lies rest, and tomorrow light.